Hello and welcome to Ask Cuyahoga. This is your chance to ask questions that you might have about the Sexennial property reappraisal process. I'm Dawn Calavini with the Department of Communications, and joining me today is Lisa Rocco, our Fiscal Office's Director of Operations.
Hello.
And the Administrator of the Board of Revision, Ron O'Leary.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being with me. I know our residents have a lot of questions. If you have a question, please just submit a comment. We are live right now on X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you can also ask a question if you want to send an email to communications@cuyahogacounty.us. By now, I do hope that you've heard something about the Sexennial property reappraisal process. Sexennial means that it's something that the state of Ohio has every county do every 6 years. Every piece of property is appraised, reappraised. What else would you like to know or have property owners know about this process, just in a broad sense, as we have to go through it here in Cuyahoga County?
So as you said, every 6 years, we're mandated by the state of Ohio to physically view each piece of property in Cuyahoga County. There is over 500,000 parcels. Every 3 years, we are charged with just doing an update and we look at sales. So this one is the big one. We're out there looking at, physically looking at each property, determining its condition, making sure our records are updated, looking at sales in the neighborhood. The biggest thing I want to stress, that we want to stress in the fiscal office, is I know everyone is going to get sticker shock when they open their proposed value notice, but please, please, please go to our website and put your value, your current value, your proposed value into our tax calculator. Your taxes are not going to go up proportionate to the percentage of increase of your value. Okay. In some cases, you might even go down.
Mm-hmm. And there was a law that was passed by the state of Ohio that's supposed to address that as well.
That
Can
is
you talk a little bit about that for us?
In 1975, the legislature passed House Bill 920, which limits the amount of money that all voted levies can bring in. So a voted levy can only bring in the amount that it was voted to bring in the year of the levy for each year of its life. Okay, so the House Bill 920, the state rolls back millage or increases millage based on the overall value in the municipality. So that levy can only bring in what it's supposed to bring in each year and no more. So House Bill 920 redistributes who pays what based on your increase of value compared to the overall increase for your municipality.
Okay. And like you said, it's the proposed value notices. Many people have received them. I printed just out, an example, but it looks a little bit like this for each person. So your current market value will be here. Your proposed market value will be there. And as Lisa said, at cuyahogacounty.gov, there's a Sexennial reappraisal link. Go to that site and put the information in the tax estimator. So you add and you put your municipality in there, you put your values in there, and it will show you how your property taxes will be changed. It's not directly associated with the amount that your value is going up. And we have had a couple of questions come in just as we've promoted this Ask Cuyahoga from people who've had a difficult time with the tax estimator. Is that something that you can address, please?
So speaking with our IT department, because I've had a lot of questions myself come in over this, and they said to try changing your browser. Either use Chrome. If you're using Chrome, use Edge. Okay. Go back out, come back in, because we're constantly updating the web page. So then the browser needs to be updated as well.
Okay.
And if that doesn't help, then please call us at 443-7420 option 3, and we can help.
Okay. So yeah, there is somebody in the fiscal office who can use the tax estimator for you to give you the numbers that you're looking for. But as I said, the proposed value notices are going out in batches. Not everybody has received theirs yet.
That's correct.
Okay. You haven't even received yours
No,
yet.
I have not. So we started mailing last Monday. So we expect all of them to be out by this week. Again, If you don't receive one by the end of this week, please call that number 443-7420 option 3, and we can also send you out a duplicate notice.
Okay. Thanks. If you have a question, just submit a comment. We are live right now on X, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also email a question to communications@cuyahogacounty.us. Ron O'Leary, our administrator of the Board of Revision, you're going to come into this process a little bit later, but
Sure.
it's something that you're already really engaged with right now. If a property owner wants to contest their proposed valuation, once they've received their notice and seen it and seen how it impacts their taxes, first of all, they need to understand what that market value number means. And I know that's a big part of your job. What do you tell residents about that? How do you help them understand?
Sure. So the market value is really what your property would sell for if you were going to sell it. And so the appraisal department looks at a number of characteristics for a property to determine what the market value is. And some of those factors are weighed more heavily than others. A recent sale of a property is always going to be the best indicator of the property's value. So if a property owner gets a new value and it is much higher than what they recently purchased the property for, that's something that the property owner can bring both to the appraisal department as part of the informal review process that's taking place from now through August 30th. Or if someone does not go through the informal review process, they can bring that to the Board of Revision between January 1st and March 31st of next year. But the question that I usually will ask people when they want to know, or when they bring up their property value, I'll ask them, with the new value, do you think you could sell your property for that value or more? If the answer to that is yes, then they're probably not going to get the result that they want through either the informal review process or the Board of Revision. But for people that say no because of the conditions of my house, I don't think I could sell it for the amount that the appraisal department has. That's the situation where the informal review process with the appraisal department, why that's available there, and the more formal review process through the Board of Revision is there.
So yes, as we said, 2 ways to contest the proposed valuation of your property. So we'll do them in chronological order. The first opportunity is the informal review process. That's something that you file with the Cuyahoga County Appraisal Department. And we do have some information about how that works, but if you could run it down for us a little bit, Lisa.
Sure. So there's several ways you can file. We have an online portal, again, on our website. You can file it electronically. You can mail it into our office, or you can walk it into our office. And we are only taking one complaint per parcel number. So the first one that we assign to an appraiser is the one we're going to use. And what we ask is that you make copies of anything that you send in to us, because you will not be receiving that information back. Okay. But it's very simple. Again, it's through our online portal, it's through the mail, or you can drop it off in person to the appraisal department.
Okay. And so what is the kind of information, and this is for either of you, we've got a list, you can get a complete appraisal report. As you said, if somebody has just purchased a property and they feel like that valuation is too high based on their purchase agreement, we do have a couple of
contractor estimates for repair. We'll accept those. Doesn't mean you have to go forward with the repair. We just want to see a professional's opinion on what needs to be done, because again, we don't go on inside the house. We stand at the sidewalk, at the curb, and we look at the house and we look to see if it is proportionate to the neighborhood. Okay. Is it in good shape? We have no idea what's going on inside.
Okay. And so somebody files that, as we said, the deadline is August 30th of this year, and those will all be reviewed and the results will be available by the end of November.
That is correct.
And that is the informal review process. And you can find out more about that at cuyahogacounty.gov. If somebody doesn't get in on that, or they don't have their documents together in time. Maybe they wanted to think about it or consult a contractor, something like that. There is another option, and that's where the Board of Revision comes in. Ron O'Leary is the administrator of the Board of Revision. So let's talk about that formal complaint process. And that starts January 1st, but people usually start getting their information together. And by then they've received their property tax bill that they're going to be paying in January.
That's correct. So the Board of Revision accepts valuation complaints every year between January 1st and March 31st. And that March 31st is a hard deadline under state law. I have had to turn people away on April 1st. So it's really important to get the complaint in between January 1st and March 31st. When someone submits a complaint, they do not have to submit their evidence along with the complaint. We accept evidence up to about a week before a hearing date. So the critical thing is to complete the complaint between January 1st and March 31st. And then the person that filed the complaint typically has time to be able to gather any additional evidence to submit to us. Our process, we try to give people as many options as possible for filing. It is a form that the state of Ohio Department of Taxation uses. So, we don't have that much flexibility in changing the form of the complaint. But if someone calls our office and says they need a copy of the complaint, we will mail a paper copy. We email copies. We have an online filing portal. People will walk their complaint into us. We even still have a fax option for people to fax in if they choose to do that. But during that period of time, I really would encourage anyone that has questions, please call our office. During normal business hours, our entire support staff and management staff, we have our phones on and ready for us to answer people's calls if they have questions.
And this is a little different. With informal review, you submit your information and then you will receive your answer in November. With the Board of Revision's formal complaint process, there is a hearing. And the process of the hearings has changed over the last few years. I know that, there were differences in COVID and with the reappraisal that happened 3 years ago. So does somebody have to come in person for a hearing, or how do the hearings work?
So a person does not have to come to their hearing, but we do schedule a hearing for every complaint that gets filed with our office. And I always encourage people that they should show up for their hearing. That's really the opportunity that a person has to explain anything to the hearing officers. Our hearing officers try to put people at ease as much as possible, even though they realize that coming for a hearing can be something that that might cause some people to be anxious,
or it's intimidating.
Exactly. So what I would say to people is, we'll do our best to put you at ease during your hearing. It really is just gathering information from you. And if they have questions about any documents that someone submits, if the person does not come to the hearing, then our hearing officers, are going to be left questioning, about some of the information that's submitted. Used to be that we only did hearings in person, so that if someone wanted to attend their hearing, they had to come to our office. But since COVID, we've had virtual options available. Someone can still come to our office, and we have a lot of people that say, I want to come in and I want to sit across the table and I want to be able to look you right in the eye to tell you why my property value is wrong. That option is there. But for people that don't want to have to maybe rearrange a vacation, or reschedule a hearing because of a vacation or another conflict, or just don't want to come downtown and pay for parking or find parking, we can do a hearing by Zoom. We can do a hearing by phone. And again, the option is there for someone to come to our office. So we'll work with anyone who files a complaint to find the best option for them for their hearing.
Okay. And again, that's the formal tax complaint process, and it starts on January 1st. This is Ask Cuyahoga. If you have a question, you can submit a question. We are live right now on Facebook, Instagram, and X. You can also email communications@cuyahogacounty.us. And I'm with Lisa Rocco, the Director of Operations in our fiscal office for Cuyahoga County, and Ron O'Leary, the Administrator of the Board of Revision. So a lot of questions are coming in, and we'll get to as many as we can. Mitchell Paul sent a question on X asking, when can we expect all property values to be updated on the Cuyahoga County Real Property website, including building information?
So, Mitchell, we will not have any of that information until the end of the year, once the state approves our final value abstract. What we do have on the website is a map that you can look at specific neighborhoods in your communities to see what the average of increase is. And we do have a sales finder also on our website under the Sexennial tab that you can also look at the sales in your neighborhood.
And he also was asking about commercial property values.
Same.
Those will be made
Yes,
public.
They will be made public at the end of the year,
Mhm.
but we will not have any commercial information on our website. You will have to call in and speak with a commercial appraiser.
Okay. What do you say to residents who are worried about their ability to afford their taxes? And I know we have extra people working in the fiscal office taking phone calls. The appraisal office has been taking phone calls from people who are very upset and concerned about how this reappraisal process is going to impact them.
Yes.
It's a tough question.
It's a tough question, and it's really a side effect of what we're doing. I know that our fiscal officer, Mike Chambers, he goes down to Columbus monthly and meets with the auditors across the state of Ohio. They have sponsored many bills to help taxpayers. Not one of them has been passed by the legislature. I know Ron, he may be able to speak a little bit more on this, but he has testified in Columbus for change in the way we do real property taxes here in Ohio. Again, nothing is coming out of Columbus at this time.
Okay.
So some of the things that I usually will ask people when they call and they say that they're struggling with their property tax, one of them is that they're two of the most widely available discounts, if you will, on property tax are the owner occupancy credit. And that's for what it says it is. You own the home, you live in the home.
Mhm.
So it's not a rental property or an investment property. If you live in your home that you own and are not receiving the owner occupancy credit, that's something that you would reach out to the fiscal office. There's a short application that you need to complete, and then you can get the owner occupancy credit. Another one is the homestead exemption. And that is generally for people who are either over 65 years old or who have a physical disability of some kind. There are income limits. I believe it's about 38,000.
Yes.
So
very low.
Yeah, it's a low amount. And that's one of the areas that the
Mhm.
legislature is looking at raising that limit, but they have not done so yet. One key factor about the income, though, is that Social Security is not counted as income for the 38,000.
Okay.
So I will typically ask someone, do you qualify for owner occupant or homestead? If you're not already receiving those and you think you qualify, apply to the fiscal office.
That's correct.
The other thing is, if someone, particularly someone that no longer has a mortgage on their property, if rather than getting their tax bill twice a year and having to pay out two large sums, a lot of people find it easier to manage if they're on the monthly payment plan that I think Lisa mentioned a minute ago. You do have to pay when you get on the payment plan, you have to pay the next half up front. to be able to get on it. But then once you're on that, you're paying monthly versus having to pay once or twice a year. So a lot of people find that to be more manageable to pay on a monthly basis versus, too large
Correct.
lump sums.
But I
Mhm.
also, if I could add that the homestead, what the state does is just take $25,000 off your property value. So again, it's a small amount to qualify, a small amount that you get off your taxes, and owner occupancy is a small amount as well. So I know that the Auditors Association is lobbying the legislature to increase those amounts, especially with homestead, to try to help our senior citizens.
Especially, the older
Yes.
adults for sure.
Correct. So it's, we are trying, and we know it is a struggle.
Mike in Shaker Heights says, I don't remember anyone coming to my house. How is the appraised value reached?
So you would not know that they came to your house. What we do is we hired contractors, about 44 of them. They're all licensed appraisers. They're all very familiar with Cuyahoga County. They've been through this process with us many, many times, and they just drive up and down your street. Okay, they don't knock on your door and say, I'm here to look. Okay, they're just looking at what we currently have as your characteristics, making sure nothing's changed, looking at the quality of your home, making sure that our records are correct as far as square footage on the outside, your home being, what kind of quality it is. Those are the things we're looking at. Again, we didn't knock on anyone's door. We just drove up and down the street.
No demands to see the basement.
No.
But I know a lot of mayors and city managers reached out. They were notified when appraisers were going to be in their area. And in a lot of cases, people were notified that the appraisers were going to be around and to
The police departments. We made
Mhm.
sure that the police departments knew that we would be out in case anybody would call because of suspicious behavior.
Yeah, there's somebody standing in front of
Right,
my
my
house with a
house.
clipboard. Okay, so there wasn't any actual notification by the appraiser that they were there,
Correct.
but they were there. We have on YouTube another complaint about the tax estimator, and again, it's something that has been up and down on the website, unfortunately. But keep trying, or you can call the fiscal office
Correct.
and give them your values, and they will tell you what the new tax proposed tax estimate is. It's 216-443-7420
option 3.
7420 option 3, and we'll be giving that again a few times because our fiscal team has been gearing up for a lot of
Yes.
calls and been taking a lot of calls and handling all the calls every
Yes.
day. I was asking how the team's doing.
The team's doing great. They're hanging in there. We have a great team. They are handling all the phone calls that are coming in, and they look forward to talking to all of you.
Dawn on Instagram, Kaiser says, why would you increase our taxes when we are all financially drained?
So we are not increasing your taxes. This is a state mandate. Again, it's two separate subjects. We are mandated to have current value on all parcels in Cuyahoga County per Ohio Revised Code. And unfortunately, all real property tax is associated with 35% of that value. That is also Ohio Revised Code.
So the percentage of the property tax, it's 35% of your
100% market value.
100% market value of your property, and that has not changed, but the valuations have gone up. And anybody who's been following the housing market of the last 2 or 3 years knows that all the values have gone up,
Well,
not just in Cuyahoga County, all over the
correct.
state.
Well, Cleveland.com just had a story the other day, yesterday, 2 days ago, that the average sale price, median sale price in Cuyahoga County for the month of June was $200,000.
Okay. And you can see the averages if you go to cuyahogacounty.gov to our Sexennial Reappraisal page. There's an interactive map where you can put in your jurisdiction, where you live, neighborhoods, so you can see what the average change in value has been for various areas. Crystal on Instagram says, my notice was sent to the wrong address. So she has received a notice, but it went to the wrong address, and she has not been able to get that copy. What can somebody do if for some reason it went to the wrong address?
So they would need to call, again, 216-443-7420, option 3. We need to update the tax mailing address, because if your proposed value notice went to the wrong address, then your tax bill is probably going to the wrong address as well, unless it's going to a mortgage company. We need to update that. And then we can get you a duplicate notice if necessary.
Okay. We have a question from Facebook. What do you say to residents who are worried about getting a fair process at the Board of Revision?
So we take a look at all of the evidence that a person submits. And it's similar evidence that the appraisal department would consider in the informal process. I talked before that the best indicator of market value is a recent sale. So if there's been a recent sale, definitely submit that information. If not, then appraisal reports are good evidence. Sometimes people will say, particularly if it's a very large increase that they think is too high and is going to impact their taxes by several $1,000s over the next few years, it might be worth it for them to have an appraiser prepare an appraisal report. Typically, an appraisal report is going to run $300, $400, $500, which is a lot, but people, sometimes will weigh it against the change in their tax and decide that it's worth it to get that report.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, a lot of people were refinancing their mortgages or taking out equity lines. The appraisal reports that the banks would do, during the refinancing process or an equity line process, that does give us information about the value of the property. It's not always as good as an appraisal like for market or for market price, but it still is good information to have. And then, as Lisa said before, any contractor estimates for making repairs or renovations to a property, those are things that we consider. So it is a more formal process. So to go back to the question about a fair process, we do, even though we're not a court, we do follow standard procedures. We always give the property owner notice about hearings and an opportunity to appear at a hearing. And our staff, is always available before a hearing to answer any questions someone would have. So I really would encourage people, if you have any questions about the process, please reach out to us first. We'll help to walk you through the process so that you can prepare for your hearing.
And this is kind of along the same line, but of course, because we also have the informal review process, it speaks to that. Ray is on Facebook and asks, how can you give a good value to a home without seeing the inside? I've seen plenty of homes that looked great on the outside. The inside was a total mess. So how is that possible? And I think secondarily, then, this is a great case for somebody to file informal review or a formal complaint.
Well, it's a great reason to, because that's what we're asking you to do. We don't know what's going on inside your home. We are tasked with mass appraising. Okay, so we take a universe of parcels and value them as one. We don't do individual appraising. Okay, so we're asking you in these next 30 days, if that is the case, please send us pictures. Please send us contractor estimates. We want to know what's going on inside the property, and that could possibly have us look at the value again.
Okay. And there, again, on the screen, a couple of the pieces of evidence that you can provide, documents of support for informal review and also for formal complaints. From Midlife Midwife on X, my house went up in value, but using the calculator, it looks like my taxes are going to decrease. And we've been saying all along that that is a possibility for some people, but how is that possible?
That's correct. Again, it goes back to House Bill 920. It redistributes who pays what depending on the percentage of increase that you have. So depending on what your municipality went up as the average, if your value went up under that average for the municipality, your taxes will go down. Someone else in your community is going to pay more.
Okay. I've got a long one here from Ryan on Facebook, but hoping we can break this down. Can you provide more explanation regarding methodology? We purchased our house in 2020, which more than doubled in property value in 2021. This new value effectively increases values of our property at 240% of the 2020 purchased value. Most other properties in the area have only increased 30 to 40%, even though they are larger and they have a lake view. Were purchases since the last Sexennial assessment, so 6 years ago, taken into account?
Yes. So not 6 years ago, 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Every 3 years, the state has us do what we call an update. And we strictly just look at sales for this reason so that you don't have, well, I don't want to say drastic because this is a drastic for the last 3 years, but they want to make sure that we are making sure that all homes are valued correctly and they don't see such a large increase every 6 years. This has been something that we haven't seen in a long time. In fact, we are still, as we look at the numbers, still not up to where we were back in 2008, but we are getting there very rapidly. We are having 4 additional informational meetings that the dates and times are on your notice and on our website, but we will get into the process at those meetings and how we do the mass appraising, what we look at, what the ratio study is.
And we've got the 4 meeting locations, dates and times on the screen right now. 4 community meetings coming up. This is an opportunity for you. Again, if you're not getting your questions answered today, or you haven't been able to call during regular business hours, you can meet with members of our fiscal office, members of our treasurer's office, and the Board of Revision, who will have a lot more information and bring your valuation notice if you want. And they can also tell you a lot more about those exemptions that are available for people.
If I may add, we will not have appraisers at these meetings. It will not be as we've done them in the past. We don't have time to sit down with each taxpayer. So these are informational only. And it will, Mike Chambers, the fiscal officer, will go through how we valued for this Sexennial reappraisal. Okay.
So a lot more about the process at these 4 meetings that are coming up for the community. And I think we touched on this, but Jara on Instagram asked, what is the existing tax rate?
It depends on what community you live in. So you can also go on our website and pull up your community under Budget Commission. I know it's hard to find, or you can call us and we can look it up for you, but it is on our website, fiscal office website, under Budget Commission.
Because there's a base rate, but then each community, sometimes there are levies or things that can impact that.
That is correct.
Okay. Gina on YouTube, has the county taken into consideration houses that were purchased under foreclosure for under $20,000 when calculating the average sales in areas?
We can't use that when we value. It has to be an arm's length sale. So it's a willing buyer, willing seller. We throw those out. Now, Ron, I don't know if you use those at the Board of Revision.
We do not.
Okay.
It's not a true market sale with a foreclosure. Those are different conditions. that led it to either a tax foreclosure or a mortgage foreclosure. So those are not considered to be market sales.
Okay. Jen on Instagram came in at the end of our conversation about the owner occupancy credit, but you gave some great information about that. And this recording will be available after we've finished our live discussion here. So you can always, send it to a friend or, watch it yourself. But I think we can cover this. Wanting to know if the owner occupancy credit has an income standard.
It does not. And that's actually another one of the another piece of legislation that's being considered by the General Assembly. I think that the two groups of people that the General Assembly is most concerned about trying to get some tax relief to are senior citizens, particularly ones that have been long-term homeowners that are now on a fixed income. But they also recognize that there are people that are younger and don't meet the conditions for the homestead exemption, but are owner occupants, and they're looking to try to get some more tax relief, for owner occupants. Again, none of those bills have passed yet. If you want to find out more or weigh in, really should contact your Ohio House representative and your Ohio senator.
And just to add on to that,
Yeah.
I want to emphasize owner occupant. You only receive one for the home you own and live in. You must live in the home in order to receive the owner occupancy credit.
Okay. Daryl Ryder wrote on X, he got his proposed valuation notice. His property value increased 42.5%. He says he's owned his own home for 18 years and had never seen an increase like that. And we do know that there are some record numbers in some areas. And he wanted to know what he's getting for his tax dollars. In fact, an itemized notification for how this new money is being spent. And I think that's on the property tax bill that you receive. I know that our treasurer's not here, but
That's
I
correct.
believe
we provide a percentage of a breakout of your taxes and where they go.
Mhm.
So based on what your rate is for your community determines the percentage of, city, county, school district. I send you to your local municipality to ask them what your tax dollars get you.
But I do believe it is printed right on your property tax bill. And, for the most part, city school districts are
County.
getting the most. Our county agencies, Health and Human Services, the municipality, as you said, community colleges, libraries, the metro parks.
That is correct.
They're all, all really vital pieces of our county environment that are getting some funding
And
from these
again,
taxes.
we have that broken out on our website under the Sexennial Reappraisal. Part of the presentation that the fiscal officer gives shows a county average. We don't break out for each community. We did a county average. If you want to go online and look for the county average of where your property taxes go.
Okay. I think I have one more here. And there are a lot of numbers, so we'll try to break it down. Why is the percentage of my property tax increase higher when I claim the homestead exemption versus calculating the new property when not claiming the homestead exemption? A 29% increase versus a 13% increase.
That's because, again, the state only gives you $25,000 off your total value. So as your value increases, that $25,000 doesn't increase.
Okay. John and YouTube, I hope that answers your question, and I thank you for joining us today. Again, we want you to be aware of some valuable tools on our website, the Reappraisal Tax Estimator. If it doesn't work the first time you try it, please try again, and apologies in advance if you're having any issues with it, but you can always call our fiscal office during regular business hours, and they will help you get the numbers that you're looking for. The Residential Sales Finder is there. You can see what properties in your neighborhood have been selling for. The Informal Review portal is there, and it's all at cuyahogacounty.gov/sexennial reappraisal. or if you go to just our homepage, cuyahogacounty.gov, Sexennial Reappraisal is one of the main links right at the top of the page. And we also want you to be aware of the 4 community meetings that are coming up where you will get a lot more information about the Sexennial Reappraisal process and resources that are available for residents. So as we wrap up, what would you like to tell residents? What do you think they should take away from this conversation? I know a lot of people are really anxious. Maybe they haven't even received their valuation notice yet, but really the first thing to do is to see how this impacts your property tax and
That is correct.
your bill.
Yes, please go to our calculator. Again, this is state mandated. We must do this every 6 years and look at the impact to you. And also we encourage you to use the tools that you just mentioned, our sales finder. Look at the sales in your neighborhood. Look at your neighborhood increases. It will show you. And, other counties that have gone through this, they're seeing the same increases. So we're not alone.
Okay.
Sure. I echo the same thing. For people that are concerned about the impact that the new value is going to have on their tax, go to the tax calculator. But a point that I'll usually make with people is that the 2 biggest factors for what your tax bill is are the property value and any voted levies. So the current tax calculator that is on the fiscal office's website, that is for current levies. So if there is a levy that is on the ballot this November or next year, and something changes, then your tax is going to change as well. So for people using the tax calculator, to make sure to understand that is for current levies. It does not factor in anything that may pass in the future.
Okay.
Or has passed. That's a good point. Thank you, Ron. Or
Sure.
that has passed this year.
Okay. Well, thank you both for taking some questions from our residents and for explaining this process. It is a process, so we will continue bringing you information as much as you need. And again, our fiscal team is available to help you get the answers that you're looking for. Ask Cuyahoga was produced by your Cuyahoga County Communications team. If you have questions about this episode or a topic that you'd like us to cover in a future live event, please let us know. Email communications@cuyahogacounty.us.